host, Sophia Ballin. I'm a journalist, producer, writer. I'm creator of the award-winning identity and docuseries Black History Untold, where we tell untold Black histories through personal and powerful interviews. And I'm especially excited about what we're going to talk about today because so much of what people will be covering, I also need. So if you see me like on the side taking notes, do not be surprised at all. The Black and Brown Founders team, better known as Team BBF, has curated this conference experience designed to capture the genius that is so often missing from other conferences. It may be the same kind of genius that you've seen in your community or work, but rarely on stages and at the tables of influence and power or in the public eye. This is why this year we are talking about money, dinero, the Benjamins, the cash money, the racks on racks on racks, or in some cases, bootstrapping, investments, crypto, and real estate, all with the intention to help you multiply your investments. Black and Brown Founders truly believes what was stated at Project North Star. Your value is undeniable. Right? That's important, right? That we see our value and that we invest in our value in our communities before anyone else tells us that it's valuable. This year at Chroma 2022, the Money Edition, we're taking a collective breath, which is necessary after these last 2 years, a collective breath as we once again explore, build, and learn from Black and Latinx leaders and experts based here in Philly and all over the United States. Our sponsors recognize this truth too and took action. We want to recognize the support of the Thrive campaign and the sponsorship of the NASDAQ Foundation to support creating 1 million new investors that come from our communities. Yes, give it up. 1 million new investors that come from our communities. As part of their purpose, the NASDAQ Foundation will work to support women and underrepresented minority communities by focusing on 2 goals: reimagining investor engagement to equip underrepresented communities with financial knowledge to share in the wealth that markets create. 2, leverage our investment in the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center alongside new strategic partnerships with organizations that can help build a deeper data-led understanding where the challenges are greatest, what existing efforts could be amplified, and how the NASDAQ Foundation can make new and distinctive contributions. We also want to thank the McCory Group Foundation, our host, the Science Center, in particular, Tiffany Wilson, the CEO and hometown corporate Comcast. For their sponsorship and more, we thank them. Now let's talk a little bit about your experience today. First things first, you should have received a welcome email this morning from Team BBF. If you missed it, be sure to take a moment to find it in your email. So y'all can take a moment, check and make sure that you have that. Take special note of the community guidelines as they'll help enhance this experience for everyone. Before I go into how the program will be throughout the day, I want to shout out those of you who are viewing on live stream. Hey, y'all. What's up? We feel you here. You're here in spirit. Happy to have you tuning in. Now to our in-person program. All of the day's programming will be happening on this floor. Our lunch and resource village will be downstairs for you to explore. The resource village is a way of us investing in our communities by having products be available to you, made for us, by us. So I don't know if y'all saw the hair products downstairs, so take advantage, support our Black-owned and Brown-owned businesses. For our evening program, don't forget to snap the QR code to make sure you are registered. Also today, I know there's going to be a lot of gems. If anybody drops any bars, if anything's just hitting your spirit and your soul, be sure to hashtag Chroma22 and tag us at BB Founders so that you can capture the learning you will have coming off of this stage. So to get us started, a bit about how Black and Brown Founders thinks and why this event is an important way of being in community. BBF believes that through entrepreneurship, Black and Latinx folks are building our own ways of being in the US and beyond to not only attain financial success, but to ensure the freedoms we need from financial oppression. It is an experience that has yielded a unique kind of creativity and resilience. In a post-George Floyd world, a successful person and their endeavors cannot singularly address economic disparities, structural issues, or racist policies. Real change cannot be a one-and-done opportunity to assuage guilt or sense of complicity. I'll repeat that again. Real change cannot be a one-and-done opportunity to assuage guilt, white guilt, or a sense of complicity. complicity. We believe that we should educate ourselves and others in our communities while holding those in power accountable to breaking down barriers. This year, we're celebrating and centering that truth. So it's time for us to kick off. So if you haven't already texted your folks reminders to join us now, and head over to your preferred social media platform and let them know that you're at Chroma 2022, the money edition. Use the hashtag Chroma 2022 and tag us at BB Founders. So without BBF Founders, tag us at BBF Founders. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the two incredible women who have made this event possible. Ania Williams, founder and board chair of Black and Brown Founders, and Del Medina, executive director of Black and Brown Founders. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Hello, good morning, buenos dias. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for being here on this rainy day. As someone that's coming from California, I'm not used to having waterfall from the sky, so it's quite of an experience, but I'm grateful for it. My name is Del Medina. I'm the executive director of Black and Brown Founders.
And hi, I'm Ania Williams. I am the board chair.
And founder and great friend. So, as Sophia mentioned, we are at the Money Edition. It's been a while since we've had an in-person event. It's been a really long while. So we're really excited to see you all, both in person and the folks that are live stream. We've all learned how to live and work in different ways during this really difficult time during the pandemic. But it's really exciting to be back in Philadelphia in particular, because we have a great history of having events here, making community here, engaging people here, more importantly, getting to know folks here and making friendships. So I'm really grateful as somebody that's coming from California to be here in Philadelphia working with you all.
I echo Del's sentiments, and I would also say that it's been, I mean, we've touched on this, but it's been a really interesting past few years. Before the pandemic hit, we were actually planning Chroma in a very different iteration, where we were going to do a bit of a road show and do a live stream, and we had all these really beautiful ideas, and we had started fundraising for it, and then the world changed literally overnight. There was going to be no events that were happening in real life until we had no idea. And it was a lot of pivots and changes in terms of what was happening internally. Things kind of changed overnight. We both saw some of our own funding start to dry up, and that of the entrepreneurs that we were trying to help. It was, I mean, the beginning of the pandemic was an extinction level event for Black businesses, Black and Brown businesses. And then George Floyd happened. And with that sacrifice from our community came a wave of support, both to our organization, to many other organizations that we have been in the trenches with. And that really helped to buoy us through a really challenging time. I remember even for folks on our team, it was really important, where folks were losing their jobs, and they knew that they could count on working with Black and Brown Founders as some steady income they would have during really, really hard and uncertain times. And a lot of that was thanks to the support of folks who have been donating and giving to our annual fund. Eventually, we were able to kind of really understand the work that we were doing in a completely different way. I think both in terms of not just how we have been thinking about how can we help Black and Brown entrepreneurs who are building with modest resources, but also how can we help by contributing to this ecosystem at large. It was during the pandemic that I also joined forces with Kelly Burton of Founders of Color, and we started the Black Innovation Alliance, which is a coalition of Black entrepreneur support organizations. A couple other folks who are in BIA are here in the room today and speaking at today's event. And we've been just really understanding that this is a thing that is not just about Black and Brown founders. Like, we could never try to carry an entire ecosystem on our back. Like, it is a thing that happens in community. It's always community that steps in the spaces that government and capitalism doesn't want to touch. And so we're just really thrilled. This means so much to be back at it. We kind of got to remake Chroma virtually throughout the pandemic. And this is the first time that we're actually back on stage in person doing this and getting to kind of build back up what has always been a real cornerstone and joy of the activities that we've done beyond the virtual trainings and boot camps is getting out here in person, seeing faces, making connections, and just trying to be here and be in relationship with each other. So thank you so much for coming and spending time with us today. And I really hope that you all enjoy the program.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Ania. And going back to the community piece, this is where I want to ask Ramon Ortega from the Thrive campaign. And oh, I don't see him in the room. Where's Jim? Somebody from Black Squirrel want to come up here real quick? I just want to say thank you. The reason I chose the theme money this year at the beginning of the year is because, once again, going back to like, what are the things that we're really good at? What are the things that we can always like engage in? The reality is that community building, ecosystem building, working with each other. I also want to shout out the folks from the Inclusive Capital Collective that are here. It's really a part of our work. While we are dedicated to work around entrepreneurship, the reality is that money is the thing that is impacting all of us. And that during the pandemic in particular, we saw and we were experiencing ourselves. I often say we are not the exception, we are the rule. The things that we're experiencing as a team is also the realities of the things that people are experiencing in our communities. And so finding ways and connection points to be able to make sure that the work that we're doing together, regardless of our specialty, is being put forward is really important to us. And so that's why I want to thank Ramona Ortega of the Thrive campaign, also My Money, My Future, and WealthBuilt.ai, as well as the Black Squirrel Collective, who are experts in particular things. The Thrive campaign is about making sure that we have that 1 million folks that are now going to be investors. It's important for us to be looking at how we are putting together a portfolio or investment. Real estate is a part of that. The Black Squirrel Collective being here in Philadelphia, launching on Friday, so tomorrow, their development accelerator. I'm so excited for them. And I just want to ask you to come up, just say a couple of things. Let's take a photo, and then we're going to get started for the day. Yes.
Well, thank you all for being here. We're really excited to be partnering with Black and Brown Founders. Been a friend and a partner for many, many years, and now with the Black Squirrel Collective. The Thrive campaign was really meant to activate and educate 1 million Black and Brown investors. We are underinvested in the markets. We're really behind in terms of retirement building. And we all know as entrepreneurs that capital and that foundational capital in our communities is so important to even small businesses, but also tech businesses. So we're really happy to be here to sort of partner around that knowledge. We got a lot of great people in the crowd today and the workshops that we're going to be doing. And hopefully you'll be walking away with some really sort of pragmatic, actionable steps. So come and meet us in our money lounge over there later today. And I'm really excited again to be talking with all of you. And then we're going to be also sharing our investment bootcamp, which was an online course for the fundamentals, particularly for the young folks who are joining us today.
Thank you. And for Black Squirrel, I do want to tell everybody here, first of all, Philadelphia, we have a lovely city that we want to start talking about how it's going to be built in our own image. And when we say that, I want to be able to let you guys know when we launch our program tomorrow, we're going to have a dozen Black and Brown real estate developers who we're going to be contributing a lot of resources to so that they can build 50 new homes in a community. We're talking about how we mobilize ourselves. We're talking about how we bring resources to the community ourselves. We're not looking for handouts. We're talking about how we build, how we sustain ourselves, and how we let it trickle down to the next generation. There's ways of building wealth, not just for yourself, but for your family and for the people in your community. I have to tell you, these ladies that I'm standing around are awesome. I've been talking, working strategically, tactically, making mobilizations and activations with these women for the past 5 years. We're talking about what we're doing here today being the start. We're going to continue to grow this. We're going to continue to add people to our community. And I want each and every one of you in here today to make sure you continue to support us and continue to watch how we grow. Thank you.
So I'm going to pass the mic back to Sophia and let's get started with the program.
Please give it up one more time for Ania Williams and Del Medina for putting in the work that I can imagine it took to bring this back again and to create a community, an in-person community and space for us to connect, and also to the Thrive campaign and the Black Squirrel Collective for supporting that effort as well. Truly, truly appreciative. Again, Team BBF extends the deepest of gratitude to the Thrive campaign with the NASDAQ Foundation, Black Squirrel Collective, along with Macquarie Group Foundation, our hosts, the Science Center, and Comcast for the support of Black and Brown founders and their partners. Now, I am especially excited to bring up our keynote speaker this morning. To start our day, we welcome Dr. Pamela Jolly, who asks the incisive question, what is your legacy wealth? She is a wealth strategist committed to guiding men, women, business owners, faith leaders, and young professionals. Her new book, The Narrow Road, is a guide to building a legacy of wealth our own way. Emphasis on our own way. She believes that everyone, and she means everyone, has inherited legacy wealth and the opportunity to build, grow, and expand upon it. We will have a giveaway to a lucky 20 of you later today. Again, if you hear any gems, if you hear Dr. Jolly up here dropping bars and you're like, wow, that's amazing, that's dope, please hashtag Chroma 2022 and tag us at BB Founders on all of our social media. I've watched a lot of her talks and I will just say that I am amazed. She's already has me reimagining how I define wealth for myself, and she just has an incredible, graceful power about her. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Pamela Jolly.
So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm nervous, not because of what I'm about to say. I'm nervous because I'm fourth generation Philly. And so as a result, my great granddaddy, my daddy, and my mama, and my grandma, I got to make them proud. So I think I hit it right. Yes. We're going to talk about the road to wealth your way. Not my way, not your way, not your way, but your personal way. I want to say first, thank you so much to Tom Webster. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him from the first moment I met him. He's just been a gem and really been really special in my life. So I'm grateful for that. I'm going to dive right into this because I'm a pretty intense person. So we're about to get real personal about business. My company is called Torch Enterprises, and it's hard to believe I was a founder 20 years ago, and I started a business, and my road was not a road that was going to lead to entrepreneurship. When I told my family that I was starting a business, my daddy said, that's not how I raised you. Okay. I learned best in a classroom. I have 4 degrees because I learned best in a classroom, but I was raised by a father who said the longer you're in school, the dumber you get if you do not know how to apply that knowledge. And so Torch stands for passing the torch from one generation to the next to build legacy wealth via ownership and equity in our community. For too many people, wealth is just money. How many people know wealth is so much more than money? How many people know that when you put legacy in front of wealth, it passes on for generations? So how many of y'all have legacy? How many of y'all have wealth? Okay, we're going to go deeper into that. And so I've been blessed to work in over 93 cities. I'm data driven. I've interviewed over 7,000 African Americans across the country, qualitatively, and 45,000 quantitatively. The first city that started for me is New Orleans. I wrote the strategic assessment to rebuild post-Katrina. So we had a federal mandate to rebuild a city from the ground up. And I started to see that there was a low level of business and financial acumen. And I wanted us to be able to overcome that, because we tend to get uber religious. We just close our eyes and believe that things are going to be okay. So as a result, once I started talking about what I believed, people started to call me Harriet, as in Harriet Tubman. This is the narrow road that she actually went back down to save her brothers and her family. Now, Harriet's first save was a woman by the name of Keziah Jolly, and I'm Pamela Jolly. So when I found that out, I really had a personal connection with her. I view Harriet as the first venture capitalist. She basically moved to the equivalent of right down the street. She worked to earn the equivalent of about $100,000. But she basically figured it out that freedom was not free without her friends and family. And so she decided to go back. So the narrow road is from a biblical text, which is enter through the narrow gate, because wide is the road. You have so many different options, but narrow is the road to life and few find it. And so for me, wealth is a fulfilled life, and I want us to go deeper into that. So today's journey is going to feel like drinking water through a fire hose. This road is designed to invite you to feel, think, and prayerfully act. Legacy narratives have guided me across my path. How many people, when you started your business, maybe your family wasn't very excited? Okay. So I had to look to my legacy and narratives to be able to help me. Whitney M. Young is one of my favorites. He said, you can holler, protest, march, picket, and demonstrate, but somebody must be able to sit in on the strategy conferences and plot a course. There must be strategies, the researchers, the professionals to carry out the program. That is our role. And I would argue that is your role. Your role as a Black and brown founder, you are going to define the next standard of wealth in your community. And so being in conferences like this and getting this level of education is so very important. So I talked to you about the primary research, but I need you to think about 5 terabytes of data, 9 years of asking people across the country the same questions. I started to see patterns. So I created a predictive modeling component around wealth. If you're blessed to get my book, you will see that wealth, culturally relevant wealth piece. The biggest thing of my research that I found is it takes 3 generations to build legacy wealth and only 1 generation to lose it. So I need you to think about your parents and your grandparents. If you can look that far back, tag you're it. Your choices matter. Now I want you to think about your business. Are you building a first generation business, a second generation business, or a third generation business? Because the way forward is back through, and our narrative around business ownership for Black and brown people in America has patterns. When 4 living generations connect together, the wealth wheel begins to turn, and this is our inherited opportunity. There is more wealth that is about to be transferred across generations, which opens up the door of opportunity for you in many ways. So we are wealth. What does that mean to you? We are wealth creators for others. Would you agree? And we have the opportunity to create wealth for ourselves. And so that opportunity is your pursuit. And how you pursue it is up to choices that narrow your road to wealth your way. And so remember I talked about strategic, the importance of being strategic. This is the 2nd Black woman currently leading a Fortune 500 firm. Just the 4th Black woman in history to serve as a Fortune 500 CEO. How many of you are launching enterprises that will be in the Fortune 500? How many of you can see your business 4 generations from now being run by someone who looks like you? The key thing that is important for you to think about is what she just said 2 days ago. The next 5 years, we're likely to see one of the greatest transfers of intergenerational wealth. It is estimated that upon their deaths, the silent generation and the baby boomers will transfer somewhere between 30 trillion and 68 trillion to their adult children. This will put younger generations in the driver's seat and has the potential to reshape our economy. It's important for me to tell you, I'm not a fighter. I'm a winner. And we are all positioned to win if we define wealth our way. This money that's transferring, even if you aren't going to inherit it, the people who do have a different worldview than those who came before them. They are looking for opportunities to invest. They are looking for opportunities to collaborate. So what is your relationship with the business of you? Because the reality is, if you don't have a wealth perspective, you walk up with the best of intentions and they'll give you a job. But if you truly understand what wealth is for you, you can have a different type of conversation, namely a negotiation that starts and ends with equity. So millennials and Gen Z, anybody in the room? Okay, should be prepared for this shift in wealth by making sure they're working on their financial literacy and considering they will meet with a financial advisor and thinking about their long-term investment strategies. How many of you are doing that now? Excellent. Continue. Wealth is nothing new in America, but for too many Black and brown people, it's uncharted territory. Let's not figure it out. If it's a proven pathway towards wealth, let's get the advice we need so that we can build the wealth that we desire. Reverend Alfonso Wyatt, a wonderful pastor that I absolutely love, said you cannot defeat what you cannot define. And so consider this. Wealth, I have found, is a journey of a series of increasingly intimate financial decisions that create, build, grow, and expand opportunities to exchange value. Intimate financial decisions. But here's what I need you to understand. The least intimate relationship in business is transaction. It's quick, it's fast, and you don't have to do it again if you don't want to. So while income is important, it is not the end all be all, which is why wealth is so much more than money. So stand up for a second. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a little exercise this morning. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I want to see what type of wealth builders we have in the room. Now, if I say a question and you say no, sit down. If you say, if I ask another question, you can say yes, stand back up. You got it? Okay. Do you have a written budget? Do you have a written budget that you follow? Are you planning for retirement? Are you saving money? Do you have a written budget that you record and review monthly? Do you have financial goals that you share with your closest friends and family? Do you have financial goals? Do you have a plan for wealth creation? Do you have an investment plan? Do you have a financial advisor that you trust and understand? Do you have financial goals that are measurable and timed? Do you have a clear definition of wealth you believe in? Will your financial legacy live on beyond you? Do you have a retirement plan that you're excited about? Are you receiving and leaving an inheritance? Is your life speaking your financial truth? Y'all look good today. What's that back office telling me? Are you confident your financial strategies will sustain your desire for independence? Are you managing your personal business as well as your professional one? Are your friends and family elevating their standard of business to match your values and beliefs? And can you see where your legacy will pass on for future generations? For those who remain standing, can we give them a hand of applause? Now let's stop the applause and now let's give them an assignment. Y'all gonna be here today? I need y'all to share how you have been able to remain standing. Wealth is a group process, and a culturally relevant approach is what our community needs more than anything. And so when you look at this, how do you feel about this list? It's a good list. Some folks tend to feel a little overwhelmed because there's a lot to get done. So it's important to understand the bigger picture, that it starts with activities, moves to systems, then to strategies, and then to models, which lead to outcomes. And so this is the narrow road. It takes you from activities to systems to strategies to models, so you get to outcomes that you believe in. It's not a one size fits all. You have to make your choices. Not everyone will check every single box, but once you know the boxes that you checked, you have a plan for finishing your unfinished business. So I'd like to share with you that we all have a window of time. We've inherited a window of time. That time starts with 18 years incubated in your family business. How many people know that your family business taught you what to do and what not to do? So say thank you. Don't say you didn't learn. You learned either what to do or what not to do. The next stage is another 10 years. Wealth can be created in decades, and that's what happens. Decade after decade, you create, you build, you grow, and you expand. That first foundation is skills to create a life journey of earning income. That next 10 years is building a lifestyle relationship with money where you manage cash flow and increasing financial responsibilities, such as a home, maybe student loan debt, maybe starting a business. The next 10 years is about growing strategic in your pursuit of financial independence because you got 20 years on you now with a relationship of money outside your family home, which goes to the next 10 years, which is the expand stage, where you're expanding your career to invest in a life you will enjoy beyond retirement, which leaves you with a 40 plus years of legacy wealth to draw down on the fruits of 40 years of labor while passing the torch to the next generation to begin the cycle all over again. Some of you will do this faster than others. Some of you will stay in one level and not move forward. It's all based on your choices. But what you don't have a choice is as long as you live 80 plus years, we all have 4 generations of financial impact. This is legacy wealth. Anybody don't have it? Who has legacy wealth? Can you see how this can pass on? Because your parents, your grandparents, everybody went through this, but not everybody knew what you knew, which is why every generation has an increased opportunity to win even more. And so, if my clicker would work, we would go answer that question. What's the primary purpose of business? Say it again. Provide value. Anyone else? Build wealth. The primary purpose of business is to build wealth for its owner. So if your business is not building wealth, who owns it? Anyone and everyone with a financial statement is in business. So if you're not building wealth, who owns you? Within our legacy narrative, particularly for African Americans, that wasn't us in the beginning. And so it's imperative for you to have a wealth perspective. So here's the journey. Life is a journey beyond what others believe is possible for you. And I hear that as I talk to people. You are moving forward and doing things and charting a new path. How many people know that we left the Industrial Revolution to the 4th Industrial Revolution? How many people know this is the tech-driven economy? How many people know that one of the negative pieces in terms of this fast, rapid change is an increasing of the wealth gap? Fast things come fast, and not everybody can keep up with the pace. So while we're excited about technology, it is important for you to be literate to the point of acumen where you can make shrewd decisions. So the road to wealth for everyone is a journey of increasing really intimate decisions. And that first one is income, right? I want you to think of that as your startup, that hard work, determination, skill building, and talent management. That second is your lifestyle. Now that is your freedom, and you are free to do whatever you want to do. You can buy whatever you want to buy. You can go wherever you want to go. But without the right relationships, a clear understanding of your wants and desires, an understanding of the healthy of being vulnerability, and some systems, you won't get here, which is a declaration of independence, where you own your expertise and you can negotiate from it, where you have confidence and you own and control what matters to you. And that's what I want for Black and Brown founders. That's what I want for everyone. I want you to declare your independence because we are Americans, and we declared ours in 1776. So then you can get to the next level, which is influence. That's when your legacy. I'm a Jolly girl. I'm Vincent Jolly's daughter. That matters, especially in Philadelphia, right? So I can lead from confidence of my legacy. So the legacy of what your business will do, the legacy of what you will do, that's an inherited thing. That's a unique perspective. The reality is that 85% of all businesses are lifestyle businesses. They stay within income and lifestyle. That's why I'm asking all of you to elevate your standard. How will you declare financial independence? So I understand when you start your business, you might not have a lot of money. But let me tell you something. This is your floor, how you were raised. Okay? So please don't tell me that you're going to sleep on the street when you weren't raised on the street. Okay? You got to work that financial plan, that business model to make sure you're clear. All these people who say they want to buy Black and Brown, you need to know how many people need to buy from you so that you can live at least at the standard that your parents gave you, because that was not easy for them to do that for you, regardless of what you feel about it. And so Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, which is the bookend of my dissertation, he said, all progress is precarious, and the solution of one problem brings us face to face with another problem. What do you think about your financial self? Option 1 or option 2? Are you saying, I'm working hard and making good money? Who can say that? Can you say this? I'm building, growing, and expanding returns of my investment of time, talent, and treasure. Now, only you know what your answer is, but here's the reality. An earner creates wealth for others while sustaining themselves. An owner is a wealth builder for themselves while creating wealth for others. I need you to own you. Now, an earner, you know what an earner does? They get rewarded with more hard work. Oh my goodness, you did a great job. Go do it over there. While an owner rewards themselves with the fulfillment of their dreams. Is that what we want in this room? So do you see why ownership is so important? Ownership of yourself, ownership of your business, ownership of market share in your community, ownership of an understanding of debt and equity. Do you see why this is important for you? Because not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Wealth is a journey that starts financial, but does not end there. And so I'm not a fighter, I'm a winner, because guess what? If you do what you love, the money will come, especially when you have a business plan and an investment proposal and an understanding of what it's going to take. But it ends with legacy, which shares the narrative of how you manage the business of you. And so you are an asset. Do you believe that? Your business is an asset in the communities it serves. Do you believe that? Our community is a business where we as assets exchange value that can build wealth as we define it. Do you believe that? So then where's the issue? Who's stopping us from believing this? Because what I found in my research is that your belief drives your action. So I'm not going to question what you believe, but I am going to look at your action. And if your action is not where it needs to be, I am going to ask, how much do you really believe it? In the Bible, it says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. A business is a series of increasingly intimate relationships that create and build growing opportunities. You are a business with a portfolio of assets, and your relationships matter. With time, with money, with other people's money, with family, with friends, with your career, your life journey as a wealth builder. What is your relationship with that? Because when an investor wants to invest in you, they want to have one of the most intimate relationships ever. And so understanding your portfolio of assets affords you the ability to elevate your standard of business dealings to collaborations, partnerships like what we saw this morning, and alliances. And that increases your impact, influence, and engagement in community. So I decided to say, what are our portfolio of assets? Because there's a wealth creator in all of us. Anyone have cultural capital? What about intellectual capital? What about human capital? What about social capital? How about spiritual capital? Seems like there's a wealth creator in you. What are you going to use all of those capitals to do with what you need? No one has a funding issue. They have an allocation issue. If you don't understand how to raise capital, then it seems like there's an intellectual capital deficit, a gap that you need to fill. But now you can be more specific and explicit. And so this may be a little testy, but Kelly Miller is one of my favorite legacy narratives. He's the first African-American to attend Johns Hopkins PhD program. He didn't finish because he couldn't afford it, but he went on to Howard University and became a dean. Now, I'm not going to read that out loud. I'm going to let y'all read it. Every fourth generation repeats itself. Now more than ever, younger people are going into entrepreneurship and doing it for themselves. This Black man saw that over 100 and some odd years ago. The race or color of a producer counts but little. The capitalist stands for an open shop which gives to every man and woman the unhindered right to work according to his ability and skill. In this proposition, the capitalist and the Negro are one. Translation, my granddaddy would say, black and white don't matter if you understand green. My daddy would say racism is an economic construct that some people confuse as social. That if you truly understand how to be about your business, you can negotiate and collaborate with anyone. And so what I found is that there were two economic perspectives in our community. What Kelly Miller wanted us to do was learn how to get there together, to form what he called a middle way that included both vocational and intellectual instruction. Now, he edited these two Black men's work. W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. See those three historically Black colleges right there? I just love it as a Hampton grad, just to see the narrative that continues to move forward. What I saw when I looked at these three legacies was a closed loop economic circle. If we could have the entrepreneurs, the W-2 earners, invest in the entrepreneurs could raise the bar in our community while the entrepreneurs raise the standard in corporate America. This is what I call the win-win. Increased capital, revenue, and profits, matching increased equity, ownership, and income. Friends and family matter. I don't believe we can't raise it. I do believe we need to educate on how, but I do believe that we can raise our own seed capital so that the first tranche of our capital stack is not someone who doesn't have the same cultural relevance that we understand. So he said, Kelly Miller went on to say about a middle road, that I see a path of progress has never taken a straight line, but has always been a zigzag course of conflicting forces of right and wrong. Is that present in our lives right now? Truth and error, justice and injustice, cruelty and mercy. And so I'm going to close with the narrow road. And this is what you'll learn in my book. There are two positions in the narrow road, position 1 and position 2. And if you are naive about wealth, you may think that this is the road. Some people are in position 1, some people are in position 2. The reality is that everybody starts in position 1. If you take the narrow road, you will cross over and get to position 2. There's the zigzag line that Kelly Miller talked about. Step 1 is create a life of increasing levels of income. You have 40 years of increasing levels of income to finance 80 plus years of living. I call that a 40-year plan for advancement. So all of you, when you're starting your businesses, it ain't good to be broke for 5+ years. No, we have to figure out how to pay yourself a living wage so that you can get onto the road to wealth. And so the next step is to build a sustainable lifestyle, because that's an 80+ year plan for sustainability, because retirement matters. There's going to be a time when you're going to want to do everything you can do, but you don't have the energy to do it. And if you're not connected and you can't sustain yourself, nothing worse than a broke, smart person trying to tell somebody young what to do. What I call this is the business of you, and this is your responsibility. The reality is, if you stay on position 1, you work hard, you live hard, if you play hard, and then you play a little hard, not harder than you work. Then you got to work even harder. And you can take step 1, step 2, further up the road. But when I asked 7,000 folks about wealth, what everybody talked about was the business of us. We have to help our community. We have to support our community. Our community has to get better. Do you believe that? How many people know that if you don't put your wealth mask on first, the only way you can help the business of us is to ask somebody else to do it? How many people who knows that whoever writes the check truly has the vision? And so this requires us to elevate our standard of business by shifting our perspective to realizing that having a great lifestyle, a car, and a house that we want is not enough to continue the legacy. We have to cross the line, and that's grow independent. And that's a 30-year pursuit of independence. 3 good decades to make your impact and own your share and own your stance. So then we can go to the 4th step, which is expand the legacy, which is a legacy model for wealth that is part inherited and part earned. My first 2 investors in my business, would you like to know who they were? Bessie Pearl Horn and Mildred Lorraine Morgan, otherwise known as my grandmothers. 2 women who did not finish high school but wrote checks that I couldn't believe. Guess what? When grandmama writes a check, guess who becomes cash flow positive and profitable in 2 years? Because you have to pay them back. They didn't invest because they understood my business plan. They invested because they knew my legacy. And so literally, wealth is generational. Generation 1 creates a foundation of hard work and determination so that generation 2 can build upon that with advanced education and social networks. So that generation 3 now has a model for the business of you to grow with additional education, but also access to other cultures that they can partner with so that generation 4 can expand the legacy. Now, we all as Americans have inherited a business model in 1619 that was slavery. Post-emancipation, sharecropping and migration were the 2 strategies of African Americans. This is a sharecropper model. You can't pass on a lifestyle to the next generation. One of the reasons why I want you to cross the line, because I need you to be a shareholder. I need you to own something. I need you to own something that can pass on for generations. The other reason is that income unifies. If we all make relatively the same amount of money, we can go to dinner and not worry about the check. But when I hear Black and brown people talk about their communities, this is what you want. Wealth equalizes. If there's someone who can't afford to be at your table and you have a wealth perspective, they can come to your table. You own it. One of the reasons why I think the wealth gap continues to perpetuate, and I understand 95% of the wealth gap is systemic, but this is assimilated wealth. You have to do what you have to do to be able to afford to do what you want to do. What I hear we want is enculturated wealth. We want to do it our way. We want to invest in culturally relevant approaches to wealth. The fundamentals still apply: income, class, ownership, and investment. This is the road to wealth your way. You got feelings about it, you got ideas about it, but it's all a matter of choices. Are you going to choose to have a 40-year plan for advancement? Are you going to choose to build an 80-plus year for sustainability? Are you going to pursue your dreams and own them within a 3-decade period? And then are you going to end with a model that you can pass on for generations? The choice is yours, but the road to wealth your way is needed in our community. We have the ability to open our eyes wide and to look for the opportunity and to find it. My prayer is that you do. I think I'm out of time. God bless you.
I'm gonna have you sit right there, Dr. Jolly. We gotta unpack some of this. Give this up for Dr. Jolly. Wow, wow, wow. Anybody else feel held accountable? Yeah. Anyone else feel held accountable in ways they probably weren't ready for? Anybody else feel called out in the most loving way ever? I need a copy of that wealth checklist so I could put it in my house every time I decide to log into Amazon Prime. I'm sitting here like, do I need to go for my MBA? Like, what needs to happen? So thank you so much, Dr. Jolly, for all of that. I'm about to change my whole life. So next up, we're going to have a conversation to really unpack some of what you touched on. And I'm going to invite up Black and Brown founder partner Ramona Ortega, creator of the Thrive campaign and founder of wealthbuild.ai. Welcome up. Give it up for Ramona, y'all. All right. So thank you both for being here and thank you for sharing your knowledge. We're truly, truly appreciative. So we know the stats. We hear about it all the time. It can be kind of grim. Ramona, I heard you say Latinx families are $100,000 away from parity to their white counterparts in terms of income. I saw a Pew Research study that said most Black adults don't have an emergency fund, and the pandemic exacerbated wealth concentration, thus broadening the wealth gap, right? So Dr. Jolly, you talked about some of this, and this is a question for both of you. How would you describe and when I say the Black and Brown community, our relationship with wealth in this country, historically and then present day?
I just did a whole bunch of talking.
She said, I need a break.
Well, I think so many of the points that were already made, which is this is over 100 years in the making, right? And I will speak to the Latinx experience, which is I always frame it in terms of colonialization. It didn't happen just here, right? The migration patterns, the colonial aspects of class and race in Latin America that have now been perpetuated in this country, right? So this is not just even in the context of the U.S. We're talking about sort of more like sort of the South-South, right, relationship. So these are not new things. Now we are still continuing to have to deal with them, right? And I think that's what we're sort of this legacy of sort of discrimination, of economic discrimination, is key to understand, to put it in perspective, because I think that what we often face is a lot of trauma in our relationships with money. There's a lot of shame around money. And so one of the things that I talk about a lot is like no shame in the money game. It's going to be the name of the book that's coming out, which is how do we reframe, especially for young people? Because a lot of, when I talk about young people, sort of millennials, Gen Z, a lot of the sort of things that we're seeing in terms of the missing fundamentals is how do I show up so that I look like I'm doing better than I am? This focus
Ooh.
on sort of, you
The
know,
aesthetic.
the bling lifestyle, right? I'm going to, you know, I'm buying $100,000 NFTs without understanding the fundamentals, right? And a lot of that has to do with shame, right? So how do we show up in this world? And especially in a capitalist system, we show up by showing how much money we have. That's what the thought mechanism is, right? So I think that we have a lot to do, and technology, as has already been said, is creating a sort of the widening of the gap. And so, as someone who's in fintech and one of very few Latina founders in fintech, I think it's very important that we need to start building the companies. Again, the equity, not only in owning sort of our wealth, but also building the companies that we're using. How many of us, instead of investing in the vanguards of the world, why are we not investing in our own companies, right? And so I think that's the kind of conversation that that we're going to have today.
Go ahead, Dr. John.
So I think the question was, what is our
Relationship
with
yeah,
wealth?
With wealth.
Yeah, I think very aspirational.
Mm.
I think it's important for us to become explicit about what it is, because it's not just like, boom, there's wealth over there and I need to go.
Yeah.
You know, it is a journey. And so I think that we have to get it, break it piece by piece by piece, because that really helps you understand that things take time. You know, many of our large Fortune 500 companies are third generation, fourth generation companies. So we have a model for 50 years from the Civil War to about 1917. America became a superpower. Who drove that were business owners. And so now I see us becoming these business owners. The same opportunity that existed for them, my grandmother would say, the same God still lives. So the same opportunity that existed for them exists for us. And it's not as if it has not been tried or attempted before. So that's why your history matters. The way forward is back through. History is prophecy. Every fourth generation does repeat itself. So the same challenges that you're facing 4 generations ago were faced before. We are of a generation that rebuilt Tulsa. 100 years ago, they rebuilt Tulsa. And so we have that same opportunity to be able to pursue it today and go further and further and further.
I love that you mentioned, history is prophecy, because I also know that you've said Black history is American business history and the importance of understanding that. And Ramona, I love that you touched on the shame aspect, because I think sometimes that's the block, right? The shame of not knowing, the shame of not understanding certain financial jargon. I'll be transparent in saying that. I'm like, I don't know what does, you know what I mean? Trying to figure it out and trying to build as an entrepreneur as well. What are some tangible tips and advice you would give people to kind of breaking down those walls of shame of not knowing or not feeling like you have the resources and the access?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talk about a lot is learning the language of finance, right? Because it's really just a language. It's lingo, it's jargon. Liquidity is just cash, right? And so I think that there's so much opportunity now to really understand some of the fundamentals. I mean, we do have just a huge influencer community, not only on TikTok and Instagram for the basics, but again, you got to come back to the fundamentals, and then that's where the certified financial planners, the folks that are actually in finance, because it's not just one move. I talk about personal finance and wealth building as a chessboard, and there's different pieces, and you move those pieces in different ways to get across the board. And I think that's really important, because each one of those pieces has different, not only meaning, but sort of it'll get you to a different place, right? You have your investment accounts, you have life insurance, you have your budgeting, right? Those are all the different pieces. And the plan isn't always the same to win. You can make different moves at different times. I know we talked a lot about the sort of the decade-long plans, and those are important. But some people, I think, are already talking about, like, how do I do early retirement? How do I not ever retire? In fact, actually, I want to be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life, right? So those are different plans. So money is a means to an end, and then you need the plan to get to that end. So I think learning the language of finance is huge. I think having those plans, not having a plan is a plan, it's just a bad one, right? So get a plan. I think about 5-year plans. I like to think about a 5 and then the 10 and then your long-term legacy plan, right? And again, it'll match what your lifestyle is. So that's really big to have that. And then getting into the rooms and so you can understand some of the fundamentals. And some of those fundamentals are going to be talked about today. There's a number of experts now more available. It's part of what we're doing with the Thrive campaign, which is how do we get the investment fundamentals in place so you can understand the different products that will help you get to your goals.
What I found is that my father would always say a man can only see as far as he can afford. And so that is why savings is important. What I found in my research is that once you have a margin of safety, and specifically for those who want to know, it's 3 months of your fixed cost coverage times 20% in a bank account that you do not have to touch. Now that number changes. Men and women have a different relationship with money. Men, I found, looked at everything first through the lens of affordability first, desirability second. Women look at things through desirability first, affordability second, which means that we fall in love with potential and get sucker punched by reality. I just
Sounds accurate.
right. I just did the largest national study of women trust in the financial services industry. And so Black women make 71% of the financial decisions in our community. So a healthy relationship with reality and desirability is important so that you put your wealth out mask on first too.
Thank you. It sounds like being in this room is a great start for breaking through some of that. And Ramona, you have such an incredible journey, right? You're the child of migrant farm workers, and you were an aspiring journalist. Hey, and you went from that to an attorney on Wall Street, and now you're a founder. What was the defining moment when you made the switch into dedicating your time to kind of balancing these equity scales?
I think there was a moment in time when I was working on Wall Street, and I realized that private equity funds were funded by pensions of Black and brown workers, essentially. So I'm from California, and later a lot of my family became state workers. Whether they worked for the state of California, but the bottom line is that they were contributing to a pension. And so at that point, I think we were working on a big company called SAT Capital, and big private equity. And I thought, well, how do they get this money? Literally, I was like, where is all this money coming from? And it's like when you realize it's pension funds. Well, pension funds are all of us. I mean, normal people, the 99%. Teachers, police officers, nurses, they're contributing to these pension funds, and those pension funds then get directed to private equity and other places. And I thought, wow, what if we actually understood how this works?
Exactly.
What if we could start to own some of this wealth in a real way? And so that's sort of, I think, at the moment when I started looking beyond just being a lawyer and earning, even though that would have been, to be honest, I could have stopped there and I would have been part of that 1% of women that were in litigation on Wall Street. But it wasn't, I seen that the bigger picture, the wealth building part for me was key, is like, if I build something, whether that was a company at that point, I didn't even realize it was going to be a tech company, but if I build something and sell something, I'll have this liquidity event where I'm going to get this money and actually be able to invest it really long term. And I think those were the moments. And then as we're looking around at fintech, when I was still at the firm, I was going, wait, they just raised how much money? $50 million? They're selling for $250 million? And I'm over here in, not in the corner office yet. And yeah, making decent money. But it was like, oh, this is the transition, right? And I think everyone has those moments, and at different places in your life, you'll say, what is that next block, right? Where's that next sort of transfer of wealth that I can reach, whether it's your own business or buying another property. I love the ideas of, owning that commercial property, right? Not just buying a home, but leveraging debt, not being afraid of debt, but leveraging it.
I love that you said that, not being afraid of debt and leveraging it. Dr. Jolly, you've said everyone, and I do mean everyone, has inherited legacy wealth and the opportunity to build, grow, and expand upon it. And you touched on it a little bit during your talk, but can you explain this and why it's important to diversify how we define wealth, especially in our communities?
Yeah. So let me start with the stats. Oftentimes in the African American community, we are over indexed in real estate, and real estate has market cycles. And so it is important to diversify, where if you could walk in the front door and buy it, why can't you go in the top door and own it? Right? So if you just looked at the purchase patterns of African Americans, whenever someone says, African Americans have $1.3 trillion of buying power, what I struggle with is it's very hard to find the number of earning power that we have.
Yeah.
And that number is lower than 1.3 trillion, which means that in all of our power, we got to buy. But if we can no longer afford to buy, where's our power? And so I really want us to be better stewards of what we have because we have that opportunity. So, to answer your question, I think that really remaining focused on what is important for you, not looking to the left or the right, but really defining what do I want to do in the window of time that I have is critical. Your business is great now. What's going to happen when you no longer have the energy to travel across the country and do everything that you do? When you go away, are the relationships going away and the funding is going away? I need us to look further down the road because we're missing some things. We have some blind spots. We've got some elders who aren't that old who could either write a check or teach you how to run a system that you have no idea you need yet. So we've got to connect the dots with what we have so that we can elevate the standard. And the one thing that I have to say, I praise God for whatever your family prayed about in the farmland that said, hey, you have to go for $1 billion sellout.
Yeah, I love that you brought up, looking down the road, because the ability to look in the future is a privilege, right? Denied to our communities because we're in survival mode. We're trying to make it from week to week, paycheck to paycheck.
Don't be mad at me, Sophia.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. No, tell your truth. It's okay. Challenge me.
That's a choice. Right? That's a choice.
Yeah.
I love y'all. But if y'all in survival mode, not able to live the same standard that your parents fought for you, you might need to do a both and.
Yeah.
You might need to be an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur till you can get it.
Yeah.
Because yes, the survival story is awesome, but I also don't think that we need to continue the survival story.
Yeah.
Right? I write checks. I invest in my classmates. And so, but you got to show up and show that self-approved. So you can scramble and hustle and do everything like that if you want. But I'm saying that you live in an opportunity right now, Sophia, where I don't believe you have to.
Yeah.
Ask not and you shall have not.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
That survival thing you're going through, I went through. Plenty of people in this audience have gone through. I don't think that's for you.
Yeah. Whew. Speak it. Speak it. Yes, give it up. Give it up for Dr. Jolly and Ramona.
I would add to
go
that.
ahead.
I mean, it's in the only sense is that this is a mantra that we talk about, I think,
With
in
Thrive.
so many ways, right? I mean, the Thrive campaign was, how do we not just survive but thrive? Because I think even the nonprofit complex of wealth building has focused on this. And I think we had a conversation about the saving part. And I think, and again, people should be saving. You should have the 3 months. You should have 6 months if you're, if you have children. But the key is that I just don't want people to be able to pay their bills. This is not just about survival. And I think that a lot of times, even the conversations about being healthy, right? Sort of the metric around sort of like financial health, that's here. That's here. That's not here. I want to see growth. I want to see mobility, right? Because that's the key. Is like, yes, you need the stability first, keeping the job, go get your money, get your stock options, get your bonuses, do all of that. And then figure out how to start to build that wealth incrementally, because that's the key. That's the legacy part, right? And then figuring out the tools to help you get there. And I think there's also a lot of talk about access, because I think back and even 10 years ago, really, lack of access. Like, well, no, now we don't have a lack of access.
Yeah.
You have robo-advisors, you have neobanks. I mean, fintech has unbundled all of the financial services. Now I would say there's actually too much access and not enough understanding. And that's sort of a little bit of the problem that we're going to face now. But we have access, right? I mean, you could start a tech business today.
Yeah.
Today.
Google is free.
Yeah. And with everybody in this room, right? You can sit down and get your financials together today, right? You don't even need the written budget. You can have it on your phone now, right? So there's so much more access. And so how do we use that access to accelerate wealth building?
Yes. I really feel like I'm sitting down with my aunties and they're like holding me accountable, like, nah, girl, you got to do the work. Stop playing. And I appreciate that. No, I really appreciate that, because you're right. The access is around us. The people are around us. It's about doing the work and actually learning this jargon and taking advantage of what is accessible to us, right? So I appreciate that. And Ramona, I want you to speak a little bit about the work that the Thrive campaign is doing, the tools and resources that you provide to Black and Brown communities.
Sure. So one of the things that came up around, I guess, was right after sort of COVID was closing out, and we had a lot of focus on the markets and who was losing and who was winning, because the market had sort of crashed, and what we've seen was that if you had capital, you actually benefited from that crash, right? So you've seen a tremendous growth in essentially white wealth during that time. And obviously, for a number of reasons, we've seen sort of a decrease in the wealth of folks of color. And I thought to myself, like, we really need to understand the fundamentals, because if we understand the fundamentals, we can take advantage of the same kinds of things in these market movements. The other thing that was happening at the same time, which was the GameStop, and it kind of, it was all over the news. And I thought, this is the problem. We have so many people now jumping into the markets without the fundamentals. And I said, I need to do something about this. People need to understand that, yes, you can do crypto. Yes, you can do GameStop trading if you want to, but you still have to have your 401k. You still have to have your savings account. You still have to have all of these other things to have protection over time. And so we started an online investment boot camp. And really, it was just to go through the fundamentals, right? What's a retirement account? What's diversifying your portfolio look like? What do those things mean? Breaking down the jargon in a way that people understood. What's a REIT? What is a real estate investment fund, for example? Like, what are the different alternative assets? What is a brokerage account? How do you use them? What do you need to know about capital gains, right? Because all these people were investing. I'm like, y'all do know that you're gonna have to pay capital gains on this stuff, right? And so that was really the genesis of the Thrive campaign, was how do we get this information to as many people as possible, because we are investors. We already have real estate. We already have, we make investments, but we're not thinking of ourselves as investors. And that was part of the sort of like, how do we change the narrative and around the identity for ourselves, and getting ourselves empowered with the jargon and with the tools so that we feel like we can go out there and make change in our own communities.
Amazing. It sounds like I need to sign up. I just turned 30 and life is getting real. And I'm like, my mindset has changed. So I love that you're doing that. So I know we've touched on it a little bit throughout this conversation, but if you can just to package it for everyone in the room, what are some tangible tips and advice you would give founders in this room about building wealth, about growing and moving beyond that point of, just surviving, paying the bills, but really just growing?
For me, I need you to understand the life cycle of business, and I need you to be real specific. I'm blessed to serve as a strategist for a Black and Brown business incubator, and everyone knows that there's 4 types of business for me. I'm a former banker, so I look at everything through the back office. And so you have emergent, you have business ready, bank ready, and investment ready. Emergent, I need you to quickly get to at least 50,000 in revenue, and I need you to cross over to 75,000 to get to business ready, so that I need you to be an S corp. I don't want you to try to figure out how to pay yourself. No more draws. I need to be really, really specific. That next level is about bank ready, and there's CDFIs, which are amazing, and they're often cash flow lenders. But a healthy relationship with a financial institution can help you navigate your way. A healthy relationship with leverage might get you to the point where you don't prematurely accept equity that isn't equitable. I am someone, and I'm old school, full disclosure, but I believe you need to earn $1 million before you raise $1 million. Because I need you to own it with equity. Because the sharecropping model is real. So many people that I know who have took equity prematurely, when they exited their business, that was it. They had to go get a job. I need you to talk to somebody who has had an exit, successful and unsuccessful. I need you to do your homework. Let's not make this unknown. Let's get very explicit about the realities of the journey that you're on, because you're not the only one that's on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Doing the homework seems to be key. Yeah, give it up for Dr. Jolly. Yes, sir.
So I would say that I come from the more of a tech venture capital route. And I think it's important that people understand the difference. I think that Dr. Jolly talked a little bit about the sort of lifestyle business, right? And we have a lot of misunderstanding about the different roads to business structures, right? So, I mean, we started in tech, you start off with a C Corp, right? Because you're going to sell securities at some point, because either you're going to sell your company to a bigger company, or you're going to IPO, right? So they're very different journeys. And in tech, for example, the reason you get venture capital is that you're going to get money before you're revenue positive. I mean, shoot, most of the ones that have cash flow positive. Cash flow positive.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, Uber doesn't even still make money, and they
I get it, but I'm saying, like, who owns Uber?
Well, investors.
Okay.
Investors now.
But I totally agree with what you're saying, but for everyone. Sometimes I feel right now the tech boom is similar to the NBA. Everybody wants to go into the NBA. 98% don't make it.
Sure.
Not 98% of tech businesses do not do IPO.
No, absolutely.
Right? And so
absolutely.
there are many Black and brown founders that I advise right now that are struggling, trying to raise capital, and they're getting it in little teeny increments and eking away their ownership stake so the payout isn't there.
You have to understand the structured model. That's the key. Because what I don't want us to do is to opt out. Because I think that is something that happens.
But I want us to have eyes wide open.
Yes, and you can lose money. Actually, you can lose a lot more money in some ways in a traditional business, right? Especially if you're taking loans out. At least equity is not your own money. Generally, it's other people's money. It's investment capital. So, and then I think those are just, again, I think understanding that there's different pathways to entrepreneurship, and there's different pathways to access capital. What I get concerned about, and when you talked about this, is that this new tech revolution is funded by venture capital and exits, whether it's an acquisition or sort of having angel capital investors, right? That if we're not there, we are going to miss out on the next $1 trillion of wealth that's being built there. Now, that doesn't mean that it's for everyone, right? And then I think that you have to understand the structures of access to capital, right? Not everybody's going to be credit worthy to go to a bank and get a loan through, an SBA.
I totally agree with you. When I lived in the Bay Area, Jenny Kassan, who wrote the original legislation for the crowd equity funding, right? So now we have the Reg A Plus.
Yeah. There's
many different structures that are going to allow us to pool capital together. The capital stack is changing. And so what you're inheriting, our Gen Z and our millennials, is a whole different landscape. Right? The capital stack will be the capital stack and the fundamentals will be there, but the relationships are changing. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying things take time.
Oh, sure.
Step it, eyes wide open. Because I sat in the Bay Area and advised several companies that were not cash flow positive, and they were happy that they had the office space. But truth be told, the people who invested in them knew that they either had a tax hedge or an outcome. I want us to be more smart about what the journey requires and how we build the multi-generational teams so that we can get to that in an accelerated pace, because this isn't new for us either. So many of us who are older than Gen Z and millennials have hit walls, but we're not done. And so we can collaborate across generations to go further than we've ever gone. And that's what I believe that Wealth Wheel is calling for us to do.
I appreciate even the back and forth and the challenging that happened here, because I'm sitting here learning from that. And I think it's important to show both opinions on this. And I really appreciate that. And I hope everyone in the audience did as well. And the respectful challenge, I loved it.
They're complementary. This is
very complimentary.
There's no competition.
I mean,
collaboration.
This is, and I think, even to Black and brown founders, I mean, the sort of premise was that if we're not getting traditional venture capital, how do we come in? I mean, I was a huge proponent of equity crowdfunding. I've been a partner of Republics for a long time. I mean, because there's more money in our communities than there is in venture capital in Silicon Valley, right? So to the point, we have the money here. How do we get access to different stacks and all of that kind of stuff?
Sorry, I know this isn't the Q&A session, but oh yeah, go ahead. I'm like, because I'm over there like, oh my God, I wish I was like on the stage with them. Well, one, because I feel like both of you are right. And to Ramona's point, we started Black and Brown Founders knowing that, and the VC investors weren't writing us checks. And so it was, how do you get from your point A to your point B, at least like making your few dollars from your business when you're cash strapped? And then the other part of it, to Dr. Jolly's point, is where Zebras came from, really, is like us really trying to expand the capital options. There's just such a big, sad space between loans and venture capital, and we need more capital vehicles, especially ones that are going to really benefit Black and Brown communities. So yeah.
And also with
Thank
the
you,
rising
Leah.
participation of Black and Brown people in the upper middle class, they're looking for opportunities. So it's a new day. We can build new structures and opportunities to be able to do this. Relationships matter. So we have a tremendous opportunity, not just to create the business, but another generation has an opportunity to fund the business. And that's what I want. That's the legacy piece, where I know I attempted to acquire $1 billion business 20 years ago and did not win, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to lose. I'm going to invest in somebody who will be $1 billion business that will look like me. I believe that. And so things take time, but I believe that it's your time. I really do.
Absolutely. Let me just say the only other thing on this is, as we talk about investments and getting used to the lingo, what we're talking about as an angel investor or the REIT structure investing in real estate, those are all alternative investments, and they should be a part of your portfolio. You should have a 401k. You're going to have your IRA. Those are your safety net. Those are your long term. And then you start to grow your alternative investments. And this is what we're talking about. These are spaces that we have traditionally not been in, and especially as women of color, which is exactly why we need to be here. And it's part of investing strategies across and wealth building strategies.
1,000%. The binary code is over. You don't just earn it and spend it. You got different things you
Yes.
have to do with it. And you need to understand how you want to allocate the resources you have to have maximum benefit further down the road, because things get better. Like, life is good post 30, 40. So I want
so.
you to experience that.
I'm scared.
Don't be scared. I just turned 50 and I'm grateful.
Hey.
And so as a result, life is good. And I want you to experience that. And I want you to be able to afford to experience it.
Amen.
So don't sacrifice the now for the sake of an unknown future. Define it.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, speaking to what you said about a new day and life gets better, what gives you both hope, right? We're talking about this wage gap and people are talking about it's getting larger and larger. What gives you hope for the future, both of you?
For me, I think it's, technology is lowering the barriers if more of us are involved. And so I do have hope that given the sort of access to information, the access to building community, and a platform, essentially, that more and more of us are going to be speaking on that platform, sharing that knowledge and creating our own communities. So I think that's what gives me hope. And so many of young folks who are also involved in personal finance and investing, we just need to start demanding now that the financial institutions also respond to us collectively.
20 years ago, when I launched my business and I talked about wealth, in the Black community, everybody wanted me to talk about poverty. Now, everybody's okay. I'm talking about wealth.
I love that.
That brings me hope. And the fact that more of the younger generation actually want to get further down the road. Many of us didn't even know what it looked like. And so I'm hopeful because this is a new day.
Yeah, I love that. Y'all, please give it up for Dr. Jolly and Ramona Ortega. Wow, wow, wow. We're going to open it up to Q&A. Anyone have any questions? Do we have a runner for the mic? I'll run it. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. I just have a quick question. Dr. Jolly and Ramon, this was great. As you talked about entrepreneur, like using your intellectual capital, do you have any specific advice for people who've had a very who've been in that intellectual space, how to sort of pivot that into a business space? And because for me it's like a job, but you're talking about like a wealth. So I'm trying to I'm struggling with how to translate like decades of work experience. I'm an engineer, former engineer, and how that can translate to like a wealth building vehicle.
Most
If you could
definitely.
speak to that.
Yeah. So, what I often say is that 90% of the financial services industry is white male. So I don't get angry because I mean, if you woke up and all you saw was white male, you weren't thinking about anybody else, right? Why do I say that? White males, when they retire, they go to a paid board. Oftentimes, black and brown people, when they retire, they go to an unpaid couch, right? So, first step first, you want to see how you package your intellectual capital. Best thing ever, get on a board, right? Whether it's a community board, paid board is great, but a community board to start because you got to start relating with people and learning how to package it. One of the things that I want people to understand is when you work in corporate, corporate is a genius, right? It's why there's a Fortune 500. They know how to plan everything around you that you don't have so that you can be successful. So when you leave, many of my mentors have private equity firms. They invested in corporate executives into businesses. They lost a lot of money because they didn't know how to put the infrastructure around it. One of the things that you're going to have to do is see what type of contributor are you to a wealth cycle of someone else. If you have the intellectual capital, but somebody else has the product, that's a relationship that needs to be built. Start to figure out what is your way to do that. Read my book and we can talk about it because your identity is very specific to how you do that. I hope that was helpful.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for all the great wisdom and knowledge and experience that you've shared. My question is really for both of you. Two points. One has to do with taking risk, and that's taking risk across generations, across demographics. In terms of that point, you have people like you stated, Dr. Jolly, that have had success, but they're not risk takers when it comes to investing. So how do you convince them that it's worthwhile? How do you educate them about risk? Like, what do you have to say about that point?
Yeah. The 4 roadblocks that I found in my research for building wealth together were trust, capital, leadership, and accountability. The first thing is trust. But when you data mine the way I have of trust, what's underneath trust is a lack of organization and priorities. The way that you get someone who has the means to invest, but not the risk profile to do so, is to let them prioritize what matters most to them. Get a clear understanding of what enough is for them. So many people, if you haven't taken inventory of what enough is for you, you're afraid to lose everything. So you trust no one and you actually don't trust yourself. And so we need to have some prioritized conversations. The way that I work with my friends, listen, I'm not asking you to write $100,000 check yet. Can you start with 1,000?
Yeah.
Right? Can you experience that? Is that going to be okay with you? So baby step it, because once they start winning, the momentum starts. But your generation and you specifically, your social class, need to have those conversations. So when we're up in the vineyard, we need to start talking about ways in which we take it to another level.
That's right.
Latinos don't have the vineyard yet. We're getting there. We're jealous about the vineyard.
Don't be jealous. We'll help you.
Solidarity. It wouldn't be on the East Coast. It's got to be on the West Coast. But it's funny. I literally have these conversations all the time in the Latino community about how we don't take enough risk because we don't take educated risk. And that's essentially the steps that she's outlining right now, is that it's about educated risk. Are you getting the information? Do you understand your risk profile, right? What does that even mean? I mean, you open investment accounts today and they're like, you answer a couple of questions and supposedly that's your risk profile. Nobody knows what that means. I ask young people when they're investing, what did you choose? Like in terms of, was it a moderate or was it a high risk profile when you started investing your 401k? It's like when someone says, do you want to lose your money? Essentially, they're like, no, I want to be safe. Well, no, if you're young, you don't want to necessarily be safe. You have a long profile. You want to be able to earn as much equity in this time period. So it's interesting because I think that we don't understand our own risk profiles and we don't understand how much we can move around. And especially for folks that are in their like 40s and 50s, they might have a 401k that's got a lot of money in it, but they don't have any liquidity. Right. So I just spoke with someone who's like, she's a Latina engineer, has money, but she has most of it in her 401k. And I said, well, let's look at some opportunities here. And you need someone to walk through what are the different avenues. Can you move some of that into a self-directed IRA? Yes, you can. Right? How do you make it so that that money can be moved into a Roth IRA, and then when it grows tax-free, so when someone sells that company, you get that equity tax-free, right? So understanding the different accounts and the different strategies is really important to take that educated risk. But I think you're absolutely right. It's not just in the African American community. We see it in the Latino community. It's very risk adverse because there's so many people also counting on your success. It's right. It's not just you. It's maybe your mom and your sister and your brother. So there's a lot of other people that also rely on your stability. And so I think that's part of the cultural equation that we have to consider.
The other, I guess, the other question I have a 23-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old son, and I'm really focused on making sure that, they understand investing and have that legacy, that you've spoken about, towards their future. But what I find challenging is getting their focus, right? Getting their interest. So one of the things that I remember doing last year, actually sometime during COVID was, I got them into Bitcoin as kind of a gateway, investment to get them focused on investing in the stock market. So I think while there's definitely, a great opportunity, all the information is there, but there's a challenge with millennials and younger people in terms of capturing their interest and having them understand the importance of long-term investing and the fact that they have time on their side. What do you recommend in terms of piquing their interest and getting them kind of more focused on investing?
The way I teach it, it's about indoctrinating them into the family business early. They are going to be inheritors. You have a road to success that you've taken, and it's a model that they've inherited. They need to understand it. And so I wouldn't suggest starting something new. I would say, look, this is how I got here, and this is what you stand to inherit. Let's together figure out how do we multiply that and take it to the next level so that you're joining together to build something. I love 2-generational strategies where it's like, daddy said did it this way, I'm going to do it this way, but because daddy did it this way, I can do it this way. And I have a responsibility to continue the legacy. So I want to learn with him. I want to grow with him. It's a relationship, really. There's a wonderful quote from the Carnegie Institute of Technology. 85% of your financial success is due to your ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. Only 15% is due to technical knowledge. So the narrow road focuses on the 85% that we most miss because the technology is fundamental, right? But if you don't feel a certain way, can't communicate, can't negotiate, can't see it, it doesn't matter. And so that's why, as a Wharton grad with my dear classmate friend Daria Walls right here, it's hard for me not to be hardcore finance, but if I truly want to get there together, I have to understand that 85% of this is relationship. And I struggled with that because I was like, can't you see the discounted cash flow? Can't you see this? Can't you? No, they can't see that because their feelings are jumping up, right? And so, there is a risk of loss, but there also is a risk of gain if you understand how long you're going to be in the market. So, but if you don't understand the ebbs and flows of the market, you think you're just going to lose. Yet, how many of y'all win with that lottery ticket? $18 billion is invested in the lottery, and everybody loses every day. And so let's think about these things and put them in relative context so that we can just shift our perspective. Do the same thing, just do it a little differently in a different vehicle that'll build wealth your way.
I would say the one thing though, because I think that we do have a lot of young folks in the crypto space. And especially in our communities, there does need to be some education around that. And I think it's really important that you're having those conversations. A little bit of skin in the game doesn't hurt for them to start to understand, not just in crypto, but even in the equities market, and making it relevant to their life. And I think the conversation around money from a family unit is probably one of the most important things that you can do. So they understand like this is just one offering. This is one piece of the larger pie. We have a nice gift for folks out there. They're called the money boxes, and we've partnered, and it's literally a kind of a box of questions. It's almost like a game around money. And I would encourage all of you to take those home, sit down with your partners, your family, have that conversation around money. It's a really great way to jumpstart a lot of these important conversations.
Time for, I think, one more question, or we'll see if we get to two. Go ahead.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad that you dropped that reference around the money boxes because that was explicitly what I was going to ask next. But my name is Taylor Cobb. I'm from Reify Solutions, a small consulting firm that focuses on capacity building, data solutions, policy and advocacy, in addition to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're in process of launching our second firm, which is social impact advertising. I have had success in being able to build my company in terms of the ability to understand my market, build that trust, understand the role of leadership. However, we're now starting to have the conversation around capital. And that's where our knowledge then holds. I've had numerous conversations with like VCs and everybody in between about mentorship and guidance. However, I haven't been able to nail down that explicit comment that you have made was that list around risk assessment, right? That risk assessment and that financial assessment of your organization. So if possible, can you recommend to me as a rising leader, like just a tool that I can use to be able to make that risk assessment and do it internally before I go up to like you all as leaders trying to look for investment?
I think there's two. You have your own set of tools. I think it really depends. The question is first just a conversation about what kind of capital do you want to access. I think for me, it's always a simple question. Do you want to sell your company to another company, right? Or is this a company that you want to keep as a legacy? Because those are two different types of capital that you'll then access. So if you're going after, no, this is going to be an agency that I want to hold on for the next 50 years and build it out, then it's a different pathway in terms of capital, and you'll need different types of strategies. If you want VC, it's a very different conversation.
And VC is a 10x return. That's what they're looking for, right? So explosive growth. And so, you know what your vision is for your business. Make sure that you know how you are aligned in the market to get those types of outcomes. I'd be more than willing to have a chat with you. I would love to know who's your bank, what's your relationship with your banker. And there are so many different programs that are out there, but definitely you want to talk to somebody. The last thing I'll say to you is, debt and equity are two different relationships. Okay. So depending upon how you want to fuel your growth, so I want to see what is in the inner workings.
Question?
We have also, I've just been informed, there are a few questions from the live stream viewers as well. I'd love to allow this woman to ask her question and then read at least one question from the web folks. Okay.
Hello, my name is Angela Prentice, and I run an IT company around the Beltway. We're down around DC. I started out in the Fortune 500, but in the last 20 years, I've been fairly successful in my own firm. So I am just elated to be in the space where we talk about equity investment. And I think my investment advisor might be here today, but he's drilled in my head OPM, other people's money. But when I was coming up, as I was saying to Jim earlier, I was the only Black, I was the only woman, I'm the only, and I look around and there are not a lot of people out there offering money. So I think education clearly is a big part of that, but also there needs to be communication on the part of what you do with the money once you get it. Because I have tried to invest and pass on that generational wealth and understanding and awareness. And sometimes it's like going down the hole, and that list, when the standing up and down, the only two times I sat down when it was around family understanding about money. So, there's a need for a Black Susie Orman, so to speak, in our environment, as we, well, we're both of you, more of you. So I'm just really elated to be here, and I really keyed in on the OPM piece, the equity investment. I'm starting to really get that. But there's also, we're a culture of, Latinos and Black where we're the biggest spenders. We're the lowest earners, so we have to have some kind of education. I'm going to grab a couple of those boxes, so and when I have my family together, we're going to have that conversation. Some get it, some don't, but my point really is that we really need to educate our young people because it's a different world, and they have a lot more opportunity than we did. Thanks so much for all your awareness.
Thank you. But you also are an outlier. You also are an outlier, and you have a lot more opportunity coming ahead for you. So taking other people's money or having more if equity investment is in your journey, that exit, right, is going to give you a windfall. And so I've studied Black women trust in the financial services industry. I'd also love for you to talk to someone to get in your mindset about what that actually looks like, given that you want to transfer wealth as well. So I'm proud of you as someone who was a banker in DC.
Yes. Congrats on being in IT too. I mean, that's a huge and also you becoming an angel investor in companies that are similar. You bring so much knowledge. I mean, if I had an IT type company, I would want someone like you on my board of advisors. So I think that's key.
Okay, two things. One is I got to take a look at the money box last night. It's dope. You should definitely take one home. They're like really great questions to get you thinking and being mindful about your relationship to money and how you think about your future, your money future. So grab one of those. I'm going to ask a question on behalf of the web people because I kind of misunderstood what the folks were telling me on the AV team. Because this is a question that I get from people a lot, which is how do you prioritize the kind of saving, investing, building part for yourself when you do have, because we've talked a lot in previous events too, that there's kind of the reverse friends and family for a lot of the folks that come to our conferences that are building these companies and they're trying to have exits or successful future, but they are still kind of helping with the folks that they care about most. So how do you try to help but have healthy boundaries that still allow you to do your own growing? And that could be the last question.
So if you read my book, there are 4 types of capital relationships.
Buy the book, y'all.
And so sympathetic capital relationships is when you jump in the same pit that your friend or family member is, and you risk the success that you already have. My prayer is the 4th one is compassionate, right? You have a road to wealth, a road to success. I need you to offer that first before you write the check. And so it's really important that we have the hard conversations to keep business personal inside of our families, because oftentimes that 4th barrier of building wealth together was accountability. A lot of people feel that once you get success, you forget where you came from. And so what I ask you to do is one thing that you're going to finish and you're going to start, share that with the family, friends and family, so that they are on the journey with you. Because you would be amazed, 4% of us, we talk a good game, but 4% of us are really leaders. 96% of us are followers. So the eyeballs that are watching you are the ones that are closest to you. They might cast shade. They might not be able to say, I'm not happy for you, but they're learning. But let's not make it so difficult for them to really get the lessons and apply it to their lives.
And I think having these transparent conversations about family and money are really important. I mean, we were just talking about this yesterday, especially when it comes to, brothers, sisters, parents. Think smart about how you do that, right? I mean, for so many Latino families, for example, taking care of an elder parent is just part of their culture, right? There's just part, it's baked in. You are the retirement plan. And so when I'm talking to people in California and I'm like, okay, you're looking to buy property, make sure that that property has enough space for an ADU, right? So that think about how to use that property to take care of your family, right? Then how do you buy something together where mom is going to be there, right? These are the kinds of ways in which you structure the actual transactions that make sense. And when you're giving money to family, if you're giving someone, I will say, if it's more than $1,000, have that conversation, sit down. This is what I expect of you. This is the time frame. It's a loan. And in fact, if you put it in paper and they don't pay it back, you can count it on your taxes. But that's seriously, right? It's an as long as it's a papered loan, and and there's sort of a transactional paperwork there. The point being is that you want them to understand that this isn't, you're not just throwing money into a pit, that this is an investment into them, even if it's a loan. And I mean, and if you don't think they're going to pay it back, say, here's what I need to know that you're going to do with this money, so that make sure that it is putting you in a better place.
Thank you so. Ooh, hello. Thank you so much, Dr. Jolly and Ramona Ortega. Give it up for them, y'all. On a quick personal note, listening to you both, I realized I need to call my parents and give them a thank you. And I owe them an apology, because so much of what you've said, they have told me. My parents are immigrants. They came here from Jamaica, and the first thing they did was invest in property. And like you said, most of our people from our communities invest in real estate, and they've been trying to get me to do the same thing. But my fear and my lack of understanding has stopped me from investing my money in certain ways. And they've talked about keeping the money within the family. So I'm going to give them an apology and thank them. And they're going to be like, it took 2 other people to tell you, oh, because she have our MBA. You listen to, I'm going to hear all of that. So thank you so much, Dr. Pamela Jolly and Ramona Ortega, for sharing all your wisdom and information. Y'all, please check out the Thrive campaign and sign up. Please purchase The Narrow Road, the book. I will be doing both. Thank you so much for what you've given today. It's been so impactful, and I'm not just saying that. Like, my life is going to be different moving forward. Thank you so much. So for everyone, before you go to lunch, a couple reminders of how the afternoon sessions will go. We will have speakers and workshops going on at the same time. Check out the website and take a look for signage to allow you to navigate your way through. Lunch will be downstairs. Please make sure you connect with at least 2 people you have not met before. When you come back up to this room, it'll be transformed. On one side, we will continue to have speakers. In the other, we will have entrepreneurship talks. The Thrive campaign will be talking about investment, and the Black Squirrel Collective will be having workshops about real estate. So again, just follow the signage and you'll be directed. And also there will be a makeup artist outside, and they'll be having there'll be a photographer taking headshots as well. So enjoy lunch, y'all.
Just like a really quick thing, we are doing a giveaway of Dr. Jolly's books, and that includes the people that are online right now. We have a couple of books, so just keep an eye out for that. We will be doing this giveaway. We'll give you details after lunch.